The Locked On road to the NHL trade deadline continues. The New Jersey Devils make the biggest move so far at or before the trade deadline. They acquire Timo Meier and Scott Harrington from the San Jose Sharks for 2 number 1 picks and a number of prospects. With me to discuss this deal from a Devils perspective, Trey Matthews of Locked On New Jersey Devils. And Trey, you're trying to hide it, but I know you're smiling right now. Talk to me about this deal.
Oh, I ain't hiding it. I'm showing it. I ain't hiding it. I'm showing it. I am smiling ear to ear. The Devils got their guy. So the dominoes were just falling into the place for New Jersey Devils to get Timo Meier. It was basically their deal to lose. So obviously they were linked to a lot of other players. I was doing episodes as in regards to like who could be a backup option for Devils. So we see Vladimir Tarasenko. He goes to the New York Rangers. We see Ryan O'Reilly. He's heading over to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Then Bo Horvat, he was traded away to the Islanders. Barbashev was traded to the Vegas Golden Knights just this morning. So I was like, okay, this is the Devils' deal to lose. And the Carolina Hurricanes looked like they dropped out of the race earlier today as well. So the fact that the Devils got Timo Meier, a relatively young player, a great winger piece, someone who is on the same playing field as Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, and Jesper Bratt, someone who can rack up the points, someone who can rack up the goals, but at the same time, he's bigger than them. So he also adds that physicality. He adds that grit and determination. So we kind of have those players. So it's like Miles Wood. I don't consider him an enforcer, but I consider him a pest. Timo Meier, he's a big upgrade in that regard over Miles Wood because Timo Meier is not afraid to get under the skin of his opponent. He's not afraid to ruffle some feathers. And then I think the best example on the Devils prior to Timo Meier, you get someone like Nathan Bastian, someone who likes those redirect goals, someone who likes standing in front of the net, and someone who just basically loves cleaning it up a bit. Timo Meier likes to do that. So you add size, you get great production. Devils are already a great scoring team. If any indication showed in their previous matchup against the Philadelphia Flyers when they thrashed them 7-0, I think the Devils just ultimately, they won this trade because they didn't have to give up Yegor Sharangovich. They didn't have to give up Shimon Nemets. They didn't have to give up Dawson Mercer. They didn't have to give up Luke Hughes. They didn't have to give up Alexander Holtz. Basically, they kept some of their big-name prospects, and they did have to trade away a couple first-round draft picks. So obviously the 2024 one is conditional. I don't know what the agreement is, and then their 2023 first-round pick. But let's face it, the Devils are now competing. They have to sacrifice something, and if it isn't going to be one of those players, it's going to have to be like draft picks. But those draft picks weren't really going to be good for the Devils anyway, so it doesn't really do them any justice, especially if they're projected to do well next year as well. But this was a great deal for Tom Fitzgerald, and he deserves a round of applause. He deserves to take a bow, and he needs to win GM of the year.
All right, where does Timo Meier fit into this talented New Jersey Devils lineup, and who do you think he's playing with?
That's a good question. So you can either put him with Nico Hischier, someone who he has great chemistry with after their world championship run. Obviously, they represent the same country, so you could get sort of that Swiss cheese kind of pairing, as I like to call it. However, Dawson Mercer has been on a tear alongside with Nico Hischier, so you probably don't want to break up that line. But then you could put him with Jack Hughes. Jack Hughes is obviously our best player. And then Jack Hughes gets another scoring winger added to him. And then you move Andre Palat down to the bottom six to the third line. I know people will say, man, you are overpaying for a bottom six player, but I'd rather have too much depth than too little of it. So I think it really depends on the circumstance. But for chemistry reasons, I would say Nico Hischier. But for production reasons, because Jack Hughes knows how to set up his teammates, I don't know if you've seen some of the overtime plays that Jack Hughes has done during the course of the season, but we know that he has eyes on the back of his head, on the side, bottom, whatever case might be. He knows how to find his teammates. He knows how to set them up on a silver platter. So production-wise, it could be Jack Hughes, but for chemistry reasons, it could be Nico Hischier. It really depends on how the Devils want to go about this. There's really no wrong.
One thing that was not worked out, there is no contract extension. So Meier's deal ends at the end of this season. What do you think the odds are that he is a New Jersey Devil come October?
I say pretty likely. I think the depth, and I think this was good for the Devils because it's like, yes, you give up a few first-round draft picks, and yes, you give up some prospects that, quite honestly, I was high on. I love Shakir Mukhamadullin. I love Fabian Zetterlund and what he brought during the course of the end of last year and glimpses of it this year. And Nikita Ohotiuk, I love his physicality. I love his assertiveness. And I said the Devils kind of need an enforcer. So I was like, maybe Nikita Ohotiuk, he fits that bill. But ultimately, I'd say Timo Meier is definitely going, if I had to guess, I'd say he's going to be in a Devils uniform come next year. And I think this circumstance is just trying to figure out how long do you resign Jesper Bratt for and for how much? And the same can be said for Timo Meier, because Timo Meier, it's rumored that he wants around $9 million annually, but the Devils don't want to give someone a forward more money than Jack Hughes, who's getting paid around $8 million annually. So they're going to have to come to that compromise. And obviously, Jesper Bratt and his contract situation is definitely going to play a factor as well. But I'd say Timo Meier is going to be a Devil come next year. And it helps that the Sharks are retaining half of his salary.
No question about that. Well, be sure to check out Locked On New Jersey Devils for more on Timo Meier and his future situation and all things Devils. And keep it dialed to Locked On NHL all along the road to the NHL trade deadline. This is the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.